Now we come on to the world of the Academy. Now this is obviously the start of the racing journey for all of our competitors in the Caterham paddock. One of the nicest things that we've observed over the course of the weekend though, check this out, straight away, the Orange Army is on every single one of the cars here, and it's been very nice indeed to see the drivers as they've come in at the end of every race is hooting the horns in respect for the marshals here. Very, very sombre occasion for many of the officials. There has obviously been a few tears already shed over the course of the weekend, but it's wonderful to see that the camaraderie and the brotherhood of the race drivers and the respect they've shown the marshals all weekend long has just been fantastic. Long may that continue even after this weekend. Let's go to our pole sitter, Ian Harris, who's getting himself ready for action. Ian,
yes.
The perfect starting position. You are in a very good mood today.
Well, we had a very wet qualification, which I managed to get pole, which I was actually quite surprised about, but I'm not complaining. Everyone's geared up now for a dry race, so let's hope this holds out. And yeah, it's going to be a good race. It's a very tough track to overtake. We're all very close. It's going to be interesting.
Now, with this being such a short track, and obviously the laps just tick away, it must be a bit of a tunnel vision sometimes when you're trying to drive with other people. You get lost in the zone almost.
Yeah, 100%. So where we were at Silverstone the other day, we were at 2 minutes something per lap. This is a 55, 56 second lap. You kind of get into a rhythm, but then what I find is if you're then doing quite well and you look down at your timer and you've got 12 minutes to go, they're the longest 12 minutes of your life because you're looking at them going, please end because I'm going to come, you know, wherever that may be. So it goes both ways.
Well, fantastic. Hopefully you're going to stay towards the front for the entirety of. Good luck with it.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Excellent. Let's go and talk with Freddie Chidix, who is the man fighting with him at the sharp end of the field. It's definitely going to be an interesting race for him from second on the grid. Freddie, what a fantastic 2021 season. It just keeps getting better and the results just keep coming. How is it from second place?
Yeah, it's good. Looking forward to this race. I like the wet, I like the dry, so I don't mind. It's going to be fun either way.
And obviously with this being the Academy season, your first real taste of motor racing at this level, could you ever imagine that you would be fighting at the front end of the field in your first year?
No, I hoped I would, but to be actually doing it is brilliant.
Now, obviously making your way from a novice in the Academy through to racing, just how tough has the transition been?
It's tough. I didn't think we'd be doing so much testing and practice. I thought we'd just turn up and go and race. Reality is you need to do a lot more than that, but it's worth it.
Fantastic. Good luck out there. Have a great race.
Thank you.
And as the drivers have already mentioned, the weather is definitely taking a turn for the better. However, if you look over there, that is not looking particularly promising. That rain cloud is coming over once again, and I can already start to feel, Scott, those first few ominous drops of rain. Could be another spicy one for these poor Academy drivers. They really are going to have a minefield to deal with out there.
I always jokingly said that I love to see their faces when they head down towards Paddock Hill Pendant Racing Speed for the first time. Must be quite a picture, but yeah, the Academy drivers, of course, in that very first season race that they're contending, you get basically an all-in package for 30 grand. You keep the car at the end of the season, but basically 30 grand buys you pretty much the entire season. So with the Academy drivers, you always have to start, as every single driver is in the Academy, as a complete novice. That means you cannot have held any racing licence in any discipline, as far as I'm aware, at all. You have to be a complete racing novice. You can't have ever held any kind of racing licence or even a karting licence at all. You can't have done any racing whatsoever. That means from there, you then get shown the ropes by going through your ARDS test together with everyone else that's in your respective group. You also then get to do a handling and test day, a drift day, setup day, everything that you need to get to grips with the car, and also being around in the Caterham Motorsport paddock environment. And then usually the Academy will then start not on the circuits but on a sprint, so they get them to use some solo competitive driving, and usually go to places like Aintree or Kerbra. They did it at Rocking in one year as well, but Kerbra was this year, and then they've already had their first 4 races of the season. Their first rounds was at Mallory Park. I think quite a nice circuit to start things off, nice and simple. Then they had a double header up in Scotland at Knock Hill, which is quite a treat for the Academy, and then they had their incredible race at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, and because the circuit was so big, it was big enough, it was essentially one big Academy race with both green and white group cars on the grid at the same time together, and essentially just lining up based on their qualifying positions based on green and white. So if you on one side of the grid had all the green group cars, the other side had all the white group cars, and that was a race together on track. And it gave us a bit of a prelude for what we normally get at the end of the year, which is the non-championship Autumn Trophy, which happens at the last rounds of the season, and that is pretty much what I call a graduation race for them, which is no championship points, no sort of connotations for anything in terms of the title. Quite simply, just a final race to essentially see them graduate, in many cases, from the academy, just for a trophy and some bragging rights. That's how it should be in many cases, but it's after all the racing's done. It's a perfect way for them to sign off what will have been a memorable first year of racing in the academy. So, given that the subscription for the academy is that big, they have to split them off into 2 groups. So they have a green group and a white group, and this is the green group who are heading off for their first race. They're only racing today. They have 1 race each this weekend, so the green group goes first. And each has its own respective championship points table, so the green group obviously having their own races means that they have a battle in the point standings. Coming to the weekend, Freddie Chidix leads the way with 112 points, as we saw was talking to Jake just now. He leads by 5 by Mark Jones with 107. Jeff Newman is then third with 100 points, meaning there's 12 points separating the first 3 cars. Then it's a tie for 4th at the moment on overall points between James Cook and Mark Kendall, with Robert Domain on 83 points, a further 10 points back from that tie for 4th. There's then 82 points for Mark Williams. And Ian Harris, who starts on pole, is on 81 points and starts in. He's 18 points, but he's going to start from pole for the first time. He won the sprint back at Caterham. And it's Chris Fraser and Philip Clark rounding out the top 10. Let's give you the grid though, for as they come up towards the start of the race. We're getting the first couple of boards up before we get underway. So that's the 1 minute board and 30-second board is preparing the drivers for their green flag lap. And whilst they're off in that formation lap, we'll give you the grid in a moment. You get 25 points for a win, 23 for second, 22 for third. You also get a fastest lap point as well if you take it in your class as well. So to head off on their formation lap, it is, as we saw, Ian Harris, who will start on pole position. He starts alongside the championship leader Freddie Chidix on the front row of the grid in car 66. Then row 2 is a rather unexpected 3rd place for Theo Theato, who comes to the weekend 16th in points and hasn't finished higher in a race than, I think that is 11th, I think he's finished. No, correct lie. That was actually, he finished in 8th. So that was at the last round at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit. And he's had some much improved pace. He now starts 3rd on the grid alongside Mark Jones, who is the current runner-up in the championship. Then it's Jeff Newman, 3rd in points, and Paul Woodman, who, it's fair to say, those two have a bit of a rivalry so far this year, and so they'll be starting together on the 3rd row of the grid. That should be spicy. It's then James Cook and Chris Fraser on the 4th row of the grid, followed by Mark Williams and Robert Domain to round out the top 10. Mark Kendall comes next on the 6th row, alongside Paul Castle. Then it's Joe Priday and Philip Clark on row 7. Rob Bain and Oliver Hardick come on the 8th row of the grid, followed by John Hood and Richard Percy. Then it's John Vincent, Ian Bettis and Isla Lowe to round out our 21 car grid for the green group in this year's Caterham Academy. So everyone making their way around, and of course remember this will be it's only their 5th ever proper circuit racing start. So this is certainly something they're still continuing to learn. Of course, all of them have the novice crosses on the back of their cars. Of course, that's the yellow square with the black cross. That denotes they've done less than 6 competitive races. And of course, just like sort of students throw their sort of hats into the air, whatever they're called, when they graduate, they get to rip off the novice cross on the back of the car when they graduate from the academy. And of course, then they get to move into the road sports and then carry on their racing journey as they see fit. But the plan is to stay in and amongst the Caterham Motorsport paddock and move up from academy, then road sport, then 270, 310, and of course the 7 UK Championship UK at the top of the ladder. So the cars making their way into position on the grid. Quick colour check. It is Ian Harris in the blue car on pole position. The black car alongside him, Freddie Chidix, is there alongside. The orange car, which I think has got some animated sort of tiger or cat graphics on there, is 3rd. It's the green and grey car of Mark Jones in 4th. Jeff Newman's car is the blue and white car with the yellow roll cage. And then it's the white and red car with the black roll cage. That is Paul Woodman in 6th position. James Cook is there in 7th in the black and red car, and then it's the 8th place position car Chris Fraser as they get underway from race number 1 for the green group. And it is a great start for Freddie Chidix and for Mark Jones. Not such a great start for Ian Harris, and also a good getaway as well for Jeff Newman, who looks up the inside for 3rd place. But it's Chidix, the points leader, who leads from his main rival in the championship so far, Mark Jones. The top 2 head up Halewood Hill together, nose to tail for the first time. Close back in under brakes, and it is going to be Chidix from Jones. Then it's going to be 3rd place for Ian Harris. Jeff Newman's dropped back behind. It looks like Theo Theato And also Paul Woodward. So Paul's made a good start up to 5th. I'm sure Tim Liddell will be pleased. So he'll be up into 5th position. He's challenging for 4th already on Theo. Looking to try and get himself up the inside. And Paul's one of those drivers who has had decent pace, had very strong pace, but just hasn't had the best of luck. He got involved in an incident at Anglesey in his second race. He also missed out what could have been a strong result at an open round at Mallory Park, but he went straight on at the hairpin and managed to recover to what was a very close 6th position. So he's got some work to do, but he has got some strong pace out there, and certainly will try and use it here in this first race. 20 minutes in this Academy race to come across the line for the first time. It's Chidix who leads, Jones in 2nd, but under threat from poleman Ian Harris in 3rd. Theo Theato is 4th, Mark Kendall is 5th, but it's 6th position for Paul Woodman. So for Jeff Newman, who was quite a dominant victor in the overall, as well as the Green Group race for the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, he's now going into combat with Mark Kendall. In there too is James Cook in the number 15 car. That's the sort of charcoal grey car with a little red flash on the roll bar. Watch out for him as he's on the back of Jeff Newman. Then we have at the bottom of the top 10, it is going to be Mark Williams, followed by Joe Priday. Joe's made a good start. He started 13th, up 3 spots to 10th already, so a few more positions gained. Now round through Tarrant, through Clearways and Clark Curve. So yeah, biggest gainer was Joe Priday, 3 spots gained on the start there. No, biggest gainer was Mark Kendall. He started 11th, he's up to 5th. So it's the green car there with the sort of pinkish red stripe down the middle. That is Mark Kendall. He's got a great start, but might be demoted here by a late braking Jeff Newman, who does slip up the inside into paddock and makes his way past into what looks to be 6th position. Mark wasn't done that even through there. He was like, you might be one of the top drivers out there in the academy, this group, but I quite like my position back if you don't mind. He wants the position back again. Looks, I'm sure, Mark Jones, because there goes Ian Harris, squeezing back into 2nd place at the expense of Mark. They'll come back at him on the exit. They're going to be side by side. And the great thing is, they might be rookie drivers, but some of the racecraft they're putting up already is absolutely brilliant. They've had some fantastic battles. And this is a great proving ground to do it, of course, because these guys are all in identical Caterham Academy cars. 125 brake horsepower. As I mentioned, Caterhams are pretty much, in my view, that like you call them the Formula Ford of sports cars, because they're small, they're relatively unaerodynamic. They also have, very skinny Avon tyres. They have Ford engines, and they really do, like Formula Fords and single seaters, teach car control, teach car setup. They really do teach racecraft. They are great, pure driving machines to drive on a track and to get used to in terms of being able to get used to the whole racecraft and racing aspect. So it really is a fantastic way to get started. Paul Woodward makes the dive finally up the inside of Theo Theato. And does make the move stick. So that's Paul up into 4th position. Or is it? Because Theo goes straight back up the inside. And luckily Paul saw that coming. He took the wider approach. He was quite cautious that Theo was going to steam up the inside and possibly collect it. But thankfully he didn't. I think Theo thought better of that move and decided to hold back a little bit. But Theo's having a great run so far. What is currently his best performance so far in these early stages of this race. Had an incredible qualifying, starting 3rd on the grid, but keeping himself in the top 6 or so. But then again, Jeff Newman and co might have something to say about that in a minute, because Jeff has latched onto his slipstream. But then again, Theo has the tow from Paul Woodman. Now Newman's got a double tow down towards Paddock Hill Bend. There's also Mark Kendall in the green number 35. Oh, and the Theo Theato's big sideways moment under brakes. How on earth did he catch that? And somehow he's managed to get in front of Paul Woodman. That's quite an orthodox way of making a pass, but a pass is an overtake is an overtake, and he's got through. 3 abreast at Drury's. Mark Kendall up the inside of both Woodman and Jeff Newman. Woodman shows Newman the edge of the road and says, "Don't think so. I remember Knock Hill." And they turn in through Graham Hill Bend. And Mark Kendall with a great drive here. I think Paul Woodman, even though he wants to get at the front, he's probably sort of enjoying himself here, being in amongst this pack and having a great fight. Pretty certain all these drivers, every time they get out of the car, if it's been a trouble-free race, get out with the biggest smile on their faces, because it is such a great way for these drivers who are, let's say, completely brand new to jump into racing and to do so in such a fantastically coordinated package like Caterham Motorsport. And it really is a great way. If you're watching this and haven't raced before, but you always wanted to, and you happen to have, as some people might do, a spare 30 grand, you might be able to go racing this way. Jeff Newman's taking advantage of that. Straight up the inside of Mark Kendall into Paddock Hill Bend. He's in now into 6th position. There's the top 2. Sorry, that's 2nd and 3rd. Forgive me. That was Mark Jones ahead of Ian Harris. Freddie Chidix has a 3-second lead. There he is at the top of the shotlet, heading out of Paddock of Graham Hill Bend. So a great run so far for Freddie. Oh, and there goes Jeff Newman. Big move up the inside of Paul Woodman. Just slightly edges him out of the way. And Mark Kendall gets a good run. So also does That was James Cook. 4 of them all together. There's James getting past. Both Mark Kendall and James Cook got past Paul. And also Kendall's got past Newman as well. So Kendall started that lap. He was in between Woodward and Newman. He's got, not only has Paul been passed by both of them, but Kendall stayed ahead of Newman and just kind of re-passed him when he got through before. So Chidix then, 14 minutes to go already, 6 minutes left, there's been 6 minutes gone, there's been so much action, it's been pretty enjoyable all the way through from the start. Now they turn their way up the hill. There's Mark Jones being chased down by Ian Harris, those two still pretty close. Of course Mark Jones, as we said, came into the weekend tied, well, he's second in points, 5 back on overall scores. It's 112 points for Freddie Chidix, who's taken so far just the 1 win. That was the second race at Knock Hill. Mark Jones has yet to take a win, but he has taken 3 third places and a second at Knock Hill in that second race. There was an incident in that second race which did see a few of the main contenders drop back a bit and lose some points as a result, including Jeff Newman and like to be Ian Harris and I think Chris Fraser, and also Paul Woodward was involved in that, and Mark Jones was the big beneficiary out of all of it. Never like to benefit in that way from an accident, but points-wise, he got a massive haul and managed to climb up to second place on the declared result after it was red flagged. But now here, proving his pace at the front of the field. So Mark Jones doing a grand job here in what is kind of like a factory-coloured Caterham here. It's the kind of Caterham green with the grey was not going to save him from a move from Ian Harris though, as up the inside goes Ian back into second place, and we're back to square one again. So Ian back into P2. Jones will try and get him back as they come back towards Graham Hill Bend. He's very close, and he'll look for that undercut on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. Meanwhile, somehow Theatre is still 4th, but it's no discredit to his driving ability, but the fact he's had so many cars just rearing up behind him, it's been a testament to how well his defensive efforts are getting. He's getting out again here because Jeff Newman looks to go straight round the outside through Surtees. Took the very wide approach into the corner. That wasn't going to work as well as Theato's proper racing line. Paul Woodman stays in 6th position. It's still Kendall, then Cook, then Chris Fraser, and then it's Mark Williams rounding out the top 10. Here comes Newman, who was the overall winner at Silverstone. He's dumbing this way and that, looking for the move, trying to put Theo off here, but Theo's putting in quite a drive here to hold on. And he will not capitulate. He's not going to let Jeff Newman get through pretty easily. And here comes Paul Woodman. These two have got a bit of a rivalry going on. And now down the outside he goes. Meanwhile, Ian Fraser, I think, has got back past... Ian Harris has got maintained his position ahead of Mark Jones, but only just. He was quite wide on the exit of Druids there. Managed to gather it back up again pretty quickly. But look, you can see they're all starting to stack up behind Theato again. You've got Newman and Woodman, Kendall. Also then there too has moved up with Chris Fraser. Cook slipped behind Chris now, so that's a change for 8th position. This is 4th down to 8th. In fact, Derek's even 9th because James Cook is in there too. So Jeff Newman just trying to sneak up the inside just on the right rear corner of Theato, but the loss of momentum has now given Paul Woodman a chance to not only try and pull alongside, but to try and steal the toe that Theo had. But moving across back to the racing line has given Newman the toe. Kendall darts out to try and get past Woodman, who throws the block as he tries to go on the wide approach into Paddock Hill Bend. Round the outside goes Jeff Newman. Brilliant pass. It's not impossible to do that, and Paul Woodman's wide on the exit. He's let Kendall through, Fraser through, maybe even James Cook as well. So that could be possible. Woodman down to 9th. Oh, he'll be kicking himself. They all squeeze through again. Also in there too appears to be Mark Williams, and also Robert Domain back up the inside. And oh, that was never going to work for Paul Woodman. Big dive up the inside line, and once again, over exuberance from Paul Woodman, just catching him out. And he's now dropped down several spots. He's behind Robert Domain. Also has gone through, I think, is Mark Williams. Joe Priday's got through. So he's outside the top 10 now, unfortunately. So he's got some work to do. He's got the second half of the race to go, which is just over 10.5 minutes. So he'll be trying to work hard to get past. Now, Jeff Newman's got past Theatre, so he has managed to squeeze through. We saw him make that move down at Paddock Hill Bend. Here comes Mark Kendall this time. So anything you can do, Jeff, I'll have a go myself. And again, tries to set him up, looks for the undercut, but Theo neatly puts the car in the middle of the road. This is a good drive for Theo. As I say, it's certainly his best qualifying of the season, and certainly having his best race of the season as well. That's of Druids. Pulled a small car gap now, pulled a small gap about a car length or so on Mark Kendall. Ian Harris is sorry, that's Chris Fraser, who's moved up to 7th position. Meanwhile, back out in front, we haven't really talked about him too much because he's been that far out in the lead. Almost 7 seconds to the good is Freddie Chidix, and this is very much an un-Caterham-like lead he's got here. but very much enjoying the fact that everyone else behind is so preoccupied with battling themselves that they're pretty much just holding each other up. Here's the scrap for second. Still Ian Harris holding on ahead of Mark Jones. Of course, Ian comes into the weekend 8th in points, whereas of course we said that Mark Jones is second. Now Jeff Newman, who's 3rd in points, has just popped in the fastest lap of the race, 56.569. He's lapping, would you believe, at least half a second quicker than all 3 cars in front of him. So he's actually he genuinely is not just the fastest man on track in terms of the fastest lap of the race, but genuinely the pace he's running in clear air makes him the man that everyone's got to try and hold off. There he is in the blue and yellow Caterham, car 33. Of course, Jeff has he took the victory at Mallory Park, the victory in the first race at Knockhill, and then the Silverstone race earlier on, as we go side by side for second, and Mark Jones has a creep up the inside. He's trying to pull himself level on the exit through Clearways and Clark Corner, but again on the outside line where there's a little bit more grip, Ian Harris manages to just put the pedal out a little bit quicker, a little bit better, and hold onto the position. End of another lap. Freddie Chidix steals the fastest lap of the race back again, 56.566 for Freddie, so he's responded to the lap that Newman's put in, so now he is now lapping the same pace as Newman is. Back up the inside again goes Jones. Can he get it stopped for the hairpin? Yes, he can. Parks it neatly on the apex for Druids. But now, again, all that scrapping, all that squabbling is now just getting Jeff Newman into a position where he can challenge both of them. There was a little bit of a twitch of oversteer there just to help rotate the car through Graham Hill Bend for Newman. Further back we can see Theo Theato. He's still holding back the tide, but doing a grand job whilst he's doing it. It's now Fraser 6th, Kendall 7th, Cook is 8th, Williams is 9th, and that's Domain 10th. The Paul Carson in 11th place, and after his mistake at Graham Hill Bend, Paul Woodman has slipped back to 12th, so outside the top 10 and not really where he wanted to be. Of course, he's pushing. He's credit for pushing hard. Meanwhile, I think we've got a battle possibly towards the leaders. I think I can hear the second commentator over the tunnel getting exciting, and it is for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. It's up towards Druid's hairpin. Looking pretty close between the 3 of them. Into the hairpin they go. We need to switch back to them because they're heading up around the hairpin. There they are. So Mark Jones is into 2nd place, but for 3rd now around the outside goes Jeff Newman. Move is complete. He's into a podium place now. So one more car to pick off to get into 2nd. And I was going to say, then he can start to chase after Freddie, but the fact he's 9 seconds up the road. They're lapping on similar pace, both Freddie and Jeff, so I really can't see him catching Freddie, unless, touchwood, there's a mistake. Up the inside, he goes for it! Oh, and that was close. Jeff Newman, ever the opportunity, looked for that gap, and Mark Jones just completely shut the door and said, "You're having a laugh, aren't you, Jeff? You're not coming up the inside there at Clearways. Not closing the gap that much." So Jeff will say, "Right, you're going to do that? I'll just stick it up the inside into Paddock Hill Bend." That's exactly what he's doing. Up the inside he goes, past the pack marker whilst he's at it. And a nice, neat pass into 2nd place for Jeff Newman. Oh, and there was contact. Mark Jones just clipped the right rear there of Jeff Newman. It would have probably dislodged his rear wing, but that was a bit cheeky there for Mark. I don't think it was intentional, but certainly getting pretty close there. And Jeff now, I think, starting to feel a bit of the pressure. Here goes Ian Harris, back up for 3rd, past Mark Jones. He just drives straight round the outside of him again for Graham Hill Bend. But this is what Jeff needs. He needs these two to keep on scrapping, because if he does, he'll start to pull away a bit more. And now, after that, for some reason, it's now starting to spread out a bit more. So maybe we can look back at the scraps going on for 5th, because it's now still Theo Theato with now Chris Fraser all over the back of him. Freddie Chidix puts in a new fastest lap of the race, you can see. The leader puts in a 56.459 to continue to extend the gap. It must be over 10 seconds by this point. But now, Theo under pressure from Chris Fraser, who's on the inside line. Mark Kendall will get a double toe here, as will James Cook. Further back, we can see, there's Paul Woodman. 12th position. Sorry, 11th, forgive me. He's behind Robert Domain, with Mark Williams just ahead of them in 9th. So Robert Domain, I noticed as well, has got a slightly taller back end of the roll cage. I think it might be for his height, possibly, to try and accommodate him a little bit, but I've never seen a case where it's the odd one out of the field. They have slightly flatter roll cages for the, or slightly not as tall roll cages as the on the Robert Sports. Down the back straight, Theo still in 5th position, holding back for 6th. Now they're putting some cars further back in the top 10 there. You saw both Domain and Woodman just putting a lap on the back marker that the leaders came across a couple of laps ago. 4.5 minutes left in this Caterham Academy Green Group races 20-minute encounter. Now Theato, who's been an incredible defensive driver all the way through, and has had the pace to hold them off. It's time to put it up again now between the scrap for 5th and 6th place. Mark Kendall's getting in there pretty close as well. Just noticing out my window whilst we're looking at that. 2nd, 3rd and 4th look pretty set. So Jeff Newman, Mark Jones and Ian Harris are as they are. This is the battle we need to watch though. 5th, 6th and 7th. Theato, Fraser and Kendall. Ooh, and Fraser just misjudged the apex there, got a bit of a slide on. And that's lost in momentum, which is now going to put him under threat from both Kendall and a charging James Cook. Cook is looking up the inside into Surtees. He's through. So that's now into 8th position. No, 7th position goes James Cook at the expense of Mark, who goes down to 8th. And it's now Mark Williams and Paul Woodward who are catching them. And just saw them flash through the bottom of the shot. So they are starting to close in again. Look at their lap times. How's it looking? Well, they are lapping. Yeah, they're definitely lapping quicker. Paul Woodward actually did a 57.3. Out of Theato, Fraser, Cook, Kendall, Williams and Woodman, although that before the one we just completed, he was the fastest out of them. So Paul trying to recover here as best he can. We've got 45, 48 and 5 here battling. That is Paul Castle having a scrap with Philip Clark, and that is over 12th position. Meanwhile, here's our battle for 5th. Theato, Fraser, Cook, Kendall. Look at this, Theato was a bit slower off the corner. Chris Fraser might have a chance to pounce here as they come into Surtees once more. There's not long left in the race, less than 3 minutes to go. And Theato genuinely having the race of his life at this point in time. Just trying to hold back the tide of all these constant attacks from everyone around him that's been battling away with him in the top 5 here. And not quite a chance for Chris Fraser to get through there. So he'll try again. This time he'll dart to the outside into Paddock Hill Bend, side by side under brakes. And look at that, straight round the outside. Well, at least it was initially for Chris Fraser, but he loses out by just getting completely wide and trying to keep himself out of the gravel. Means that he's now just lost out to Mark Kendall as well. There is Jeff Newman, 2nd place. And he might drop a couple more points to Freddie Chidix in the standings, but another win for him will certainly be beneficial. So another 2nd place, forgive me, because it's Freddie Chidix in the lead. There's Mark Jones, who will be happy with 3rd, I'm sure. Solid points to try and keep him in the runner-up spot at this point. And it will do, because on overall points, you'd only drop 1 point. You get 23 points for 2nd place, 22 for 3rd. I'll get my maths right eventually. Less than 2 minutes left on the clock, as we see our almost not intentionally forgotten leader, Freddie Chidix. He's about 10 seconds up the road. I think Jeff's been trying to close him in a bit. He 2/10 quicker was Jeff on Chidix last time, but the fact is the gap is that much that, touch wood, you need a pretty monumental mistake from Freddie to lose out. But let's see, with 1.25 minutes to go, there is Jeff. There's Mark Jones in 3rd place. In 4th place there is Ian Harris, so good for him. That car in the background there's Isla Lowe. She's been put a lap down in this race so far. As the leader will be heading his way, I think, onto the pit straight. He might get maybe this lap and 1 more, maybe 2 more laps, because that time was stuck a bit there. So he that times are at 56, 57 seconds, and I'm pretty sure he would have crossed the line just before it went to that point where we might get the last lap board. So we'll keep an eye out for the checkered flag. I'll keep an eye on it out of my commentary box window. And but the last lap board has gone out, so this is the last lap of the race. So it will be this time by that Freddie Chidix will get the checkered flag. And given the fact that he's leading the championship, it's that consistency that he's had with the win at Knockhill, the 2 second places, 1 at Knockhill, 1 at Silverstone, the 3rd in the Kerber Sprint, and the only score to the drop so far is the 7th place at Mallory. But as he turns into the right-hander up through Clearways and Clark Kerr for the final time, they are ready in the checkered flag, and it will go for the 2nd time this year to Freddie Chidix, who will pick up the victory here at Brands Hatch in the Caterham Academy Green Group. It is victory for Freddie Chidix then, who wins by quite a margin over his main rival Jeff Newman. In fact, all 3 in the top 3 of the championship are in the top 2 positions. Newman was 2nd, Jones is 3rd. Newman sets the fastest lap of the race on the final lap. Ian Harris will get 4th, of a 5th place backwards after an incredible defensive drive. It's going to be a sprint for 6th to the line between Fraser and Kendall. Theato will get 5th for 6th position. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Kendall or Fraser? And it's Fraser who gets it. He holds on, but only just. by 32 1/1000ths of a second. Brilliant stuff. Oops, still cars going off towards whether against the flag. That was that Oliver Hardick, I think it was, at car number 3 that hasn't come through past the line just yet. I think it might have been. Yeah, Oliver Hardick who came across the line in car number 3, so almost put it into the gravel in the last lap. That would have been embarrassing. But excellent stuff from our Caterham Academy. Brilliant job, and there is a very happy second win of the winner for the second time this year, Freddie Chidix. He certainly deserves that after a commanding drive, letting everyone else scrap behind him, and he pulled away quite substantially to pick up the win in fine fashion here at Brands Hatch. So confirmation of the provisional results. Freddie Chidix wins by 8.7 seconds from Jeff Newman, who steals the fastest lap of the race on the final lap. Mark Jones is third from Ian Harris fourth. A brilliant drive for Theo Theatis sees his best result in fifth from Fraser, Kendall, Cook, Domain and Castle, rounding out the top 10. 11th place for Philip Clark, ahead of Mark Williams 12th. Paul Woodman, what could have been? He missed out on a top 10 or even a top 5. He has to settle for 13th place. He'd be disappointed with that. From Rob Payne, John Hood, Joe Priday, Oliver Hardick, Richard Percy, Ian Bettis and John Vincent rounding out the top 20. And Isla Lowe was the final finisher. So all 21 cars started, all 21 made it home.